Hello dear viewers, and welcome back to the ancient dwarven hold of our ancestors. Today we'll be taking a look at the game Evil West. Evil West is a third-person, story-driven action game that was developed by Flying Wild Hog and published by Focused Entertainment. It was released in November 2022. I remember watching some videos about this game before it came out, and it seemed something that I might be interested in. Then, for whatever reason, I forgot about it until one day, while looking through the Steam sale, while drinking good dwarven coffee, it popped up. It was half price, so I stroked my white beard and purchased it there and then. Before we get going proper, if I could quickly ask that should you find the antics of this old dwarf to be worthy, then could you please subscribe to the channel, perhaps leave a like and maybe comments with your thoughts on the game. Evil West revolves around you playing the character Jesse Rentier, a vampire and supernatural creature hunter who sets out to end the threat to humanity by the sanguisurge, vampires and their strange mutant creations. It is set in the late 19th century of the United States. You will punch, shoot, explode, electrocute and burn your way through numerous linear levels, defeating monsters, picking up cash and upgrades while following the story of Jesse and the Rentier Institute. Jesse is a little generic as a character, being all gung-ho and not interested much in the technicality of things, but you warm up to him as you play, with him often vocalising your own thoughts when encountering some new monster, like WTF was that. The art style of Evil West is dark and gritty. Most of the levels are shadowy and dark, featuring evil and grotesque monsters for you to do battle with. You will fight your way through underground temples, factories in the snow, abandoned towns and all sorts as you progress through the story of the game. The grim dark of it all is quite apparent, with mysterious shadows and dark corners potentially hiding precious loot to power up your hero, or perhaps leading to your doom at the hands of some nightmarish creature. This is not to say, of course, that there is not colour and vibrancy. There are levels set out in the scorching sun with reds and yellows and other bright colours to provide a backdrop to the monster slaying, as well as forests and rivers and the cold dark of the snow. The overall tone, though, to me at least, is one of unease and gloom. The violence you engage in as you battle against thy foes is well animated, with all the flashy weaponry and effects looking visceral and satisfying. There are a lot of cutscenes in the game, which are all in-engine and they look well directed, helping to tell the story of the game. The graphics in the game look really good to this here old dwarf. I am not an expert on modern graphics with all the shininess and photorealism or whatever, but I think the game looks top notch. They have done a good job here, especially as it's not published by some big studio. I must note, though, that I had a few issues with stuttering and screen tearing while playing the game. With VSync enabled, the tearing mostly went away, but I still experienced the stuttering every now and then. In my time with the game, though, I didn't experience any hard crashes. The soundscape of Evil West fits in well with the overall dark tone of things. The effects for each of the various weapons at your disposal sound just as you would hope. The thudding of your fists smashing into a foe feels impactful and responsive, while your firearms sound chunky and fearsome. I especially enjoyed the sound of blasting away baddies with the shotgun. As mentioned earlier, there's a lot of cutscenes in the game. Usually it involves Jesse conversing with some other characters in some form. The voice acting, therefore, needed to be up to scratch, lest the game's story be largely skipped through or ignored. Thankfully, I think the cast did a good job portraying the various characters in the game. Some are a little generic, sure, but generally in keeping with the theme of what people might sound like in the Old West, with vampires. You begin the game on a mission with Edgar, a friend of your father's, to blow up an old bridge and capture a well-known familiar, human servants of vampires. During this level, you are taught the basics on moving Jesse, how to interact with things like climbing or traversing obstacles. You're also taught how to employ your special gauntlet to punch evilry in the face, along with the use of your firearms. It is a good start introducing the main character Jesse and his friend Edgar, along with some of the enemies you will encounter, known as the sanguisurge. After this, the story takes off as you, along with the other members of the Rentier Institute, try to put an end to the vampire menace. I'm being a little vague about it because I don't want to give too much away, but rest assured it is an interesting tale and a take on the mythical vampires of legend, with some fun twists and turns as you follow Jesse's story. Combat in Evil West is in the third person, and perhaps similar to games like Darksiders, Devil May Cry and God of War. It is action combat with you moving Jesse and combating evilry. I think this may have been meant to be played with a joypad of some sort, but I'm a stubborn old dwarf and prefer to use mouse and keyboard whenever I can. Thankfully, using KBM was totally fine, though I found mapping a lot of the keys to the buttons on my mouse allowed me to more easily use Jesse's special skills. You start off with a few skills and weapons, with more slowly introduced as you progress through the levels. There are a few options when it comes to fighting monsters. You have access to a pistol, which you can let off in quick motion at enemies, as well as a rifle, which you can use to aim at targets further away, or even up close if you fancy. Complementing these is your gauntlet. It is essentially a powered fist you can use to pummel justice into your voracious foes. You can chain attacks against monsters with your fists, as well as comboing it together with other weapons, like uppercutting a foe and then shooting them in the air with your pistol or shotgun. The fighting is very much a case of using your arsenal to combat the vampire threat. You will need to dodge away from attacks by enemies, along with interrupting them with a steady boot before unleashing your powered gauntlets and firearms upon them. You will later gain access to more special weapons, like a flamethrower, Gatling gun and grenades, along with the fateful shotgun to aid in your struggle. Watching all the kit slung over Jesse's back does feel like he's a walking armoury. As seems a common thing in video games lately, Evil West has these preset laid out encounter areas where you know you're about to have a rumble. I would prefer more sort of fluid monster encounters, but I understand this can be useful to create set pieces for you to interact with. So anyway, in a lot of these arenas there features stacks of TNT, which can be shot at to explode nearby creatures, or can be targets for you to cannonball punch enemies into. Besides this is the big columns of spikes which, like the TNT, you can punch monsters into, making them go splat. The monsters themselves come in different shapes and sizes, from slow-moving humanoid types to large brutes swinging great weapons or wearing armour, along with great tentacle beasts, wolfmen and the large vampires which take a good amount of effort to bring down. The cast of your enemies is varied and interesting enough, with quite the imagination used to create some of them. There is this whole vibe of humans giving themselves over to the mutating powers of the vampires, creating different sorts of adversaries for Jesse to face off against. You will most likely be squaring off against a mixture of creatures, so good use of target prioritizing and evasion and combat skills is essential to succeeding. This old dwarf has to say that I do really enjoy the combat in this game. You can come at encounters in different ways, like focusing on hitting them from afar with your rifle to soften them up, or charging straight in and unleashing a lightning slam in their face with your fist. The combat needed to be visceral and most importantly enjoyable, and I think the developers have achieved both in Evil West. I played on the normal difficulty and this was more than enough challenge for myself, but if you're looking for a tougher challenge, there are 2 more difficulties for you to get stuck into. As you fight monsters and complete levels, Jesse will rise in levels. Whenever this happens, you will gain a perk point in which to spend on the perk screen. On this screen are different skills you can unlock, mostly centered on the use of your fist weapon. They are essentially talent trees in which you can build Jesse in a way to suit your particular playstyle. I do like these light RPG skill systems. You can't get every upgrade, so you need to pick and choose what to go with, affecting your combat skills appropriately. To go alongside the perks is the upgrade system, which enables you to augment the other weapons in your arsenal, namely the guns and some of the more esoteric items. Rather than having a point granted to you when you level up, you use American dollars to purchase upgrades at any time from the upgrade screen. You will find cash throughout the game in which to purchase said upgrades, so it is a good idea to look out for caches of dollars when playing. It is also wise to go off the beaten path and search for chests which contain more dollars, as well as unlocking certain upgrades. Evil West is good fun. The story is interesting with a cool twist on the Wild West. The systems are deep enough to provide intrigue and the combat is enjoyable and rewarding. I do like the dark tone this game exudes, and vampires are usually a worthy foe for any video game. It is a little rough around the edges in certain places, like the few graphical issues that I ran into, but I really enjoyed my time with this game. It would be cool to see another game in the series, and I hope this does well enough to warrant one. If you like third-person action games, then Evil West is well worth checking out. There is enough here to keep you interested, and the game length doesn't outgrow its welcome. I think it is worth the full price, but is an absolute steal if you can get it on sale, says this old dwarf. And there we go, dear viewers, another video from me here at the ancient dwarven hold of our ancestors. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.